And thank you everyone for joining us today. It truly is a great honor to give you a bit of insight into who we are as one agency in this wonderful web of community organizations that support all of Winnipeg. IRCOM provides transitional housing to newly arrived refugees. And to give you a sense, refugees arrive on a continuum of skill and educational backgrounds. So refugees will arrive as engineers, as lawyers, as doctors, as educators, and refugees will also arrive from rural communities or communities that are underdeveloped or countries that have been in conflict for decades. And at IRCOM, through a needs-based assessment, we look at the families that are arriving and specifically choose those who are going to require the greatest depth of care. And then what we do is, while they live with us for a 3-year period, we create a cocoon around those families. So 24 hours a day, staff are available to help answer questions, to help explain the mail, to deliver workshops, to talk about parenting in Canada, to deliver English language classes or job search skill workshops, anything and everything that you can imagine in terms of both logistical integration, but also emotional integration and developing a sense of belonging in the community and feeling valued and loved. And so that is what we do. And so this model of holistic wraparound services as an agency is actually the only one that exists in all of Canada. So we are very happy to be part of national research and have already shared the model internationally because we know that after 3 years, our families in particular are just set on a trajectory towards a life of possibility and dignity that would otherwise be very hard. And so we were sort of fortunate in this model when we entered this most difficult period of COVID, because we were already accustomed to taking this journey with our families. But what we experienced when the world shifted, when the world in some ways closed its doors, was that isolation that many feel on their own. We began to feel as a community. So more than 30% of our households are single mothers who have 4, 5, 6 children. And then all of a sudden, from one day to the next, they were no longer able to go and get any food. There was no childcare. There was no one to leave your children with. There was no way to safely leave a large building filled with neighbors and respect physical distancing. And so all of a sudden, we were reaching into their homes and calling each and every day and saying, what do you need? What can we help with? And mobilizing this enormous machinery of food security. This wasn't a piece that we had ever done before. And all of a sudden, our boardroom was taken over with hundreds and hundreds of kilograms of potatoes, of onions, of rice, of oil, of flour, and kit after kit was made. And we needed to source personal protective equipment because we're an essential service. So we needed to get our staff safely protected in order to go door to door and deliver this food. We quickly realized that there's a barrier for families with respect to poverty and with respect to English language and with respect to understanding local resources. But the emerging barrier to information and to supports is also a digital barrier. The fact that so many households don't have digital devices that they can use to gain information, to connect with people outside of their families. It's something I know that I completely took for granted. And then all of a sudden, as we called into every single home, we're fortunate that our staff team speaks over 45 different languages. So call lists were immediately mobilized. And I would say that we probably worked, the first 8 weeks, 7 days a week nonstop to put everything in place so that every single house was called at least once a week. And so we were doing modified needs assessments, checking on their mental health. We also sent people into units at least once a month. So in the last, March, in April, and in May, we sent someone into those units and had to safely ask families to leave so that we could make sure that their units were safe, so that children were safe. Because I think part of what what Connie was talking about is that there's an enormous amount of stress within our communities, even when things appear normal. So when things appear normal, families are experiencing domestic violence. Children are interfacing with the child welfare system. Young people, regrettably, are experiencing the justice system. And so this kind of situation creates almost it's an incubator, quite frankly, for stress and for devastation and for loss. And all of that aggravates all of these underlying realities and truly amplifies them. And so we needed to do all of these extra steps. So if you can imagine how quickly as an agency, and I know many of the United Way agencies have had to do this, not only did we undertake this incredible digital transformation without the internal capacity of IT support teams and IT departments and service providers, but all of a sudden it was, how do you serve people that you're used to serving by being face-to-face digitally at a distance? How do you get service techs into a tall building and make sure that there's Wi-Fi installed on every single floor? Because the first thing that goes when there is income security and income loss and this kind of fear is those extras. And I think to you and I, Wi-Fi and internet's not an extra. We would say, no, this is absolutely key and core to my life on a day-to-day basis. And yet it's the first thing within our many, many households, within over the 500 people who live with us. That was the first thing to go, is internet just canceled. Even if it was just used for small cell phone devices, you know, to do WhatsApp and connect with family overseas, it was gone. And so we needed to get techs up there onto, you know, our tower and make sure that we were broadcasting a signal into open Wi-Fi, and then now trying to get devices and basically get the devices into people's homes. But now you're facing digital literacy. So how do you make sure that people are trained to use these devices as you're delivering food, as you're delivering activity kits, as you're, you know, seeing the mental health of children decline, and seeing that happen is truly devastating, because to give you a sense of all the people that live at IRCOM, 2/3 are children and youth. So our buildings abound with the energy of little feet and little voices and kids running around. Kids are not supposed to run around in the hallways, but they do. They bike in the hallways too, and they live in the space. And we have the great fortune and the blessing of seeing children come alive after they've arrived in the safety of Canada. So they have left conflict zones and refugee camps, and they're finally in a space where they feel at home, and they kind of begin to take risks, and they own that space, and it is their home. And when COVID hit, the buildings went silent. And they didn't go silent because the parents, not entirely because the parents understood the public health orders and they knew that the kids needed to stay inside and physical distancing. They went silent because the families were terrified, because they didn't understand what was happening. Because until someone could call in with an interpreter and explain, this is not Ebola, but it is serious. This is how we have to treat this. This is what we need you to do. This is how we need you to let us know when you're running out of food. This is how we need you to tell us if you're in distress. But all the children began to close in. And I want you to know that it can sometimes take years to have our children come out of the shell of trauma and the shell of displacement and the shell of that migration journey that robs children of their childhood, and to see them close, to see them through the glass between where I was and where they are, kind of sitting there quietly in the hallways because we couldn't enter into the community space until we had all the PPE and until public health instructed us how to do so safely, and just sort of see them waving and, you know, these half smiles of we're here, and you know, maybe we could have our after school program, you know, when do we get to go back to arts and crafts, you know, when will we get to go out and do activities? It is absolutely horrendous to be on the other side. But I also know that this is a moment in time. And what we have seen is we have seen so many truckloads of food arriving at our doors. We have seen the business community and the whole community bringing books and bringing toys, and we have delivered toys into homes where mattresses are on the floors and kids don't have anything to play with. And devices are going out. They are going out to the youth. Our youth are graduating. Graduation is coming in 3 weeks, and I am telling you, hell or high water, our young people are going to graduate because this is their moment, and we have not let any one of them fall through. But this would not in any way be possible without this community and without the United Way. And I specifically say the United Way because what Connie says in terms of the message that we received in the first days of this pandemic is so important. The message of, we know you will do what is right by our community, is a level of trust that few, if any, funders, not funders, partners, allies, actors, and collaborators who are on the front line with you will say to you, do what is necessary, do what must be done, look after our community, because no child should go to school hungry, because no young person should be allowed not to graduate because they didn't have the technology to move towards an online platform for schooling. That level of trust, it spoke directly to our hearts. It spoke directly, it fed our energy, it fed our ability to rally. It gave us a sense of just this sense that we were not alone, because the community felt isolated, and I can tell you that the agencies felt isolated too. And we, for a moment there, we all felt like we became these tiny islands in and of ourselves, and we thought, how are we ever going to navigate this storm? And all of a sudden, this message came from far that said, you are not alone, keep going, keep pushing, keep trying, and we are with you. And the United Way is the voice of all of Winnipeg. It's not just the donors, and it's not just the businesses that support it. It is the voice of every Winnipegger that says you are not alone. So I just want to say a heartfelt thanks, because I know that you are the leaders that truly, you live by example, you live into your values, you live into what you believe and what you want our community to be. And I'm here to reassure you and to give you the confidence that you need to know that we will recover. We will 100% recover. We will not just recover, we will transform our communities. We will be a better Winnipeg and a stronger Winnipeg because of all of you. So thank you for your time today.